Join me as we talk all things true crime.
Made contact and shattered.
The missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and but the mother has went through a wall, came home, now they can't find her.
Turn it over to another agency.
Chad, where are Lori's kids? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say?
4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound.
Oh, what a tangled web we weave. Once I told a lie, and I told my family, I had to keep lying.
McSherman is a demon.
We haven't cleared anybody.
Hey everybody, let me know if you can hear me in chat. Thank you guys for being here for another ATS News live stream. We are covering the Delphi case with some updates from the Supreme Court last week, and a new motion was denied by Judge Gull, who is still on the case. She was not removed, and the Franks motion has been denied without even a hearing. So we're going to discuss this. We'll also discuss why I've kind of stepped away from the case for a little bit. And yeah, just get into stuff right away. So thank you guys for letting me know you can hear me. Thanks, Tony. Good to see you. X amount of words. Hello, Alicia. If Roxanne is listening, I don't know if she's here. I'll wait until she says I'm here. But somebody PayPal'd me money on our last live stream, the Watts live that I did with Kelly. And it was by the name of Tanya. I won't say the last name, but if you're listening, thank you so much. Dustin, it's good to see you. Rescue all dogs. Hello. Who of my friends are here? I'm asking the same question. Who of my friends are here? And I see 35 so far in chat. So it's good to see you guys. Please hit that like button. It really helps the algorithm. I have subscribers who say, we want you to talk about Delphi again. So if you want me to discuss certain streams, make sure you're letting me know by hitting that like button. And then, obviously being here helps. We are going to do a Watts live though this week. So that'll be later. Good to see everybody. Sorry if I don't go through everybody's name. I just want to get started. I'm also extremely exhausted. We have started a really hardcore potty training week with my little one, and today's day 2. So I've just been, doing the thing with that this week. So tired, but we're here. And hello, Shane. Good to see you. So I basically wanted to I'm looking through my notes or on my phone. As you guys know, I've been in live chats, like moderating for criminality, and just all over all the platforms that discuss Delphi, and I've been, in the know of things going on and discussions going on regarding the case, but I stepped away because things were just getting a little chaotic as far as creators attacking other creators, and it kind of got away from the victims and the case and the facts, and the whole roundabout commotion with, who got these leaked photos with the crime scene and all that. It was a little much. Like, I did think that it was important to find out who got these photos, but I just feel like we spent too much time figuring out like who had it first and who shared it with who and all that. What I wanted to kind of discuss more is what was in those photos as far as the reality of the case and the reality of this heinous crime. Unfortunately, those photos got leaked to people, and they kind of got tossed to the wayside because the victims, and just justice for them was tossed to the wayside because people were kind of focusing more on, let's find out who sent them to who. And while all that is relevant because of the Mitch hearing and all that, it's still, and the charges that he got for sharing these images, I just kind of felt like what we found out from those images, to me, kind of displayed that this crime was sexually motivated, in my opinion. I think that they were targeted by, something linking to the Anthony Schatz account. I keep going back to the detectives who interviewed Keegan Kline, who basically said that Libby was enthralled, which was the word that he used, with Anthony Schatz. And that was kind of something that I realized, like, okay, we can't just say that that's a red herring. I really do think that Anthony Schatz comes into play somehow. And I think that the whole concept of preying on them online definitely comes into play for this case. So what I want to do is just kind of play some clips that I put together, and it just gives a little bit of updates that we have gotten from last week. And then we'll discuss like the Frank's motion being denied before there was ever even a hearing. And basically what I put into this little clips that I've put together is I did include the illustration of the crime scene. It was done by True Crime Design. At first, I thought that was too much. I didn't think that it should have been put out there because people who had seen the photos said, yes, this is the most accurate version that we've seen. It's only like a 2-second clip. And I debated with myself back and forth all day today, like, should I include this? Should I just edit it out? I included the one from Court TV as well. But honestly, I'm to the point where I think that this photo brings everything back to what really matters in this case. And it's this heinous crime, this act that was committed on these little girls, these teen girls who didn't deserve what happened to them. And they deserve to have the focus in this case. And even to the point where, you know, people just kind of didn't even discuss like the fact that, you know, Abby is wearing Libby's sweatshirt, and Libby very much has, you know, bruising and blood on her face area and is nude. All these little things I just feel like got bypassed because of the drama and the leak. And I will say, in my opinion, that this whole leak situation was orchestrated. And I'll go into that more so after I play this. It's only like a few minutes clips and updates. So thank you guys so much for being here. Again, please hit that like button and let's get into this. And also, I just want to warn you guys that the photo is in here. It's just an illustration. It's not the actual crime scene. But like I said, I feel like at this point, we need to see a little bit of this just to bring it back to the victims. State's motion for leave to amend charging information. The defendant was arrested on October 26, 2022 by a detective with the Carroll County Sheriff's Department. Now, this list that has a few items from the search warrant on Richard Allen's home includes books, and there's speculation that perhaps these books have something to do with Odinism. Again, that's just speculation. But people have kind of been re-examining that search warrant. I know that the unredacted version has just come out, and I won't go into reading all that. We've already gone through like some items that were taken from his house and other live streams. And I know that Ruckus did a live stream about the search warrant too. So there's really no point in me rereading it. But basically, I just thought that that idea of, you know, he might not have anything that we know linking him to this Odinism stuff, but is it possible, like maybe some of these books or something like that links him? We won't know that until trial. And I think there will be a lot of evidence that comes out at trial that is just undeniable when it links Richard Allen. And I think that that is why, well, let me just play this and then I'll explain more. The probable cause affidavit, executed by then Detective, now Sheriff Tony Liggett, and filed by the state on October 28, 2022, identifies acts of murders on or about February 13th, 2017. The discovery in this clause also revolves around acts of murder occurring in Carroll County on that date. The charging information and the probable cause in this matter reflect the charge of murder, commonly referred to as felony murder. Specifically that Richard Allen did kidnap victim 1 and victim 2 by force, and in the process of committing that felony, both victim 1 and victim 2 were murdered. The state hereby moves to amend the charging information to add additional counts. which include murder under IC 35 to 42 for both victim 1 and victim 2, along with kidnapping for both victim 1 and victim 2. The state is asking for the court to leave these amended charges because the charges more accurately aligns with charging information with the clause's discovery and probable cause affidavit. The bodies of Libby German and Abby Williams were discovered near the Monon High Bridge Trail in 2017. Richard Allen was previously charged in October 2022 on 2 counts of murder in connection to the deaths of Abby and Libby on Monon High Bridge in February 2017. Carroll County prosecutor Nicholas McClellan argued that Allen kidnapped the girls before their murders, making him eligible to be charged with 2 counts of felony murder. This means a murder was committed during the act of another crime. Allen is now facing total of 4 charges of murder and 2 counts of felony kidnapping. So I just ended it while showing these images. Personally, I've gone around in circles about, is Richard Allen guilty? Is Richard Allen innocent? When I started this, it was when Richard Allen was arrested. So yes, I got my feet wet into this case, very late, 5 years down the road. It was a case that I'd obviously seen in true crime groups. And I knew the gist of it, but I didn't jump into these rabbit holes until after they had a suspect arrested. And then I really thought in my comparisons with the images that I'd been given that he looked the closest to Bridge Guy, in my opinion. And then the memorandum from the defense team came out this past fall, so 2023. And I started rethinking everything I thought I knew. And there's nothing wrong with that, starting from scratch and taking my own feelings and emotions out of it. Whereas, what I mean is I put in all this effort and videos and, thousands and thousands of views on them, with the narrative that they have their man, Richard Allen is Bridge Guy. And then all of a sudden I decided, okay, wait a minute. Am I watching this with blinders on? So I took a different stance and thought, maybe it's not him and all this stuff. And I made the mistake of comparing images of Richard Allen from the time he was arrested, so the guy on the right screen, as well as other images of him arrested, including the ones where he looks very emaciated and thin and frail. And then I was comparing those to Bridge Guy, and I just was like, wait a minute, no, it doesn't look anything like him. What was I thinking? Maybe this Odinism thing is actually relevant. Maybe it's, something I should examine it. So I examined it. I went on channels that think that he's innocent. I went on channels that think he's guilty. I really decided to take a second look at things. And then I decided to take a break. Like I said, once I had seen the gist of what this crime scene looked like with the girls and feeling like they were possibly SA'd. I know that cops have not come out stating that they were SA'd, but from what I see and the gut feelings I get and the people involved, even though they haven't come out and said, yes, Keegan Kline is involved in this, I think that he plays a role, whether he's the criminal informant or just somebody who talked to Anthony Schott's account. I don't know, but I just get this vibe that there is a possible ring going on. And I just feel like my gut instinct that perhaps Richard Allen is Bridge Guy. I'm coming back around and I'm thinking, yeah, I think Richard Allen is involved. Now, when it comes to his treatment behind prison, when it comes to this Odinism feeling, vibe and stuff like that, that's where I was getting okay, so wait, why are there prison guards, with this Odinism patch, and he's being tased in prison, and there's this guy named Brad Holder who has all these images that look very Odinism, and he's a proclaimed Odinism. When I was looking at all that, I started realizing okay, I have to entertain that this could be tied to this. So how does it come into play? And hello, Angie, and everyone else who've joined. Thank you so much for being here. So these are the thoughts that I've kind of concluded. I think that, and I'm reading my notes, so I think Richard Allen is involved, but the case against him might not be as strong as the prosecution would like. And clearly the gap in time from him being interviewed with the conservation officer and his arrest 5 years later show there were mistakes made very early on in the investigation. I also think that there was a point in time where Richard Allen was being watched by law enforcement for a while before they jumped on arresting him. So while it took 5 years to arrest him, I think perhaps they were watching him for a while before obviously making that jump. They were getting all their ducks in a row. Now, the Odinist prison guards and him being tased in prison and why is he in this prison, yada, yada, that was all very odd to me. The only thing, and again, I'm not saying that my theory is right or anything, but the only thing I can kind of chalk it up to is they realized that Brad Holder was somebody that they should look at. I mean, we know he was interviewed. We know that his son knew Abby, allegedly dated Abby. So I think that it was something that law enforcement decided to like, okay, let's go down this route. I think perhaps oh, hi, Roxanne. I wanted to thank you again for the Cash App you sent. And thank you so much for your support and being here. I love you. So basically, I think that once they interviewed Brad Holder and they got to know this Odinist type of scene, I think that it's possible, again, this is just my theory, that they came in contact with people who is part of this Odinist cult or religion, whatever you want to call it, who worked in that prison. And then it opened the door for law enforcement to say, okay, well, can you help us out in this? And again, this would mean that there's corruption, which I think that there is a high probability that there is either corruption or just desperation to make up for mistakes that they made in the investigation. But I don't think that it's outside the realm of possibility to think that while investigating Brad Holder and Odinist, that they decided to use some of them who would be willing to help them out with this prison aspect. So he was in county jail. Then all of a sudden people were wondering why he was transferred to this prison. Was it because that's where these Odinist people were and they needed somebody to kind of intimidate him behind the prison walls? I think that that's definitely possible. I think that maybe they came into contact with people who would be willing to kind of put pressure on Richard Allen to get more information, and they happened to be Odinists. And that was all found out by their investigation into Brad Holder and people who had Odinist ties. That's the theory that I kind of have when it comes, because I don't really believe that this was done as like an Odinist ritual. I think that it's staged to look that way. And I think that since the crimes occurred initially by being preyed on online, that with Brad Holder having a public Facebook page, that it would be very easy for this perpetrator to see his posts and mimic some of the stuff that they'd seen on Brad's Facebook that's public. You can go to his page right now and look at all his Odinist stuff and runes and sticks laid out and all that, and to kind of make it look like that's what it was at the crime scene. FBI says that the bodies were moved and staged. So I believe that it's still staged to look like an Odinist type thing. And I think that that's all it is. I think that that's the only kind of link to Odinist, is that it's staged to look that way. Again, that's just my opinion, and you guys can disagree if you want, and that's no problem. I've just kind of realized that, like, okay, that's just how I feel about it. Now, let me read my notes some more. Okay, so the other thing too is I think that you can think that Richard Allen is involved or guilty, but also be disturbed by the way he was treated in prison. So I think that him being tased, I'd like to get more information on those incidents. I don't understand why those guys were wearing those patches, but like I said, if they were kind of purposely kind of put there by law enforcement through their investigation and ties that they came up with to put pressure on Richard, I think that that's possible. And I think that's wrong, obviously. So I also am stating that this whole orchestrated leak, these images had been going out since 2017. First responders at the scene, as far as searchers and I guess first responders, were taking pictures or trying to from afar, and they were put up on blogs. Like we've shared the blog where it's there's like an image zoomed in, and it's allegedly one of the girls laying there, and that was from 2017. So the fact that these images kind of were leaked and then his defense team was taken off, to me I was like, what the heck? Like these images have been out there, and we tracked down who spoke on these images first, and Chris Todd was brought up, and all that, and that all research was good and valid and important. But I took a step back and I just don't understand why Mitch did this. And then I started realizing, like, okay, so the attorneys get put back on last week, right? Like the Supreme Court decides, yes, you guys can go back on. I started realizing, like, oh my gosh, what if this was all kind of planned so that they could get more time for trial? Now, I don't think that the state is prepared as well as they'd like to think they are. And I think that perhaps the memorandum from the defense team caught them off guard, and they started thinking like, we need more time, but he has a right to his trial to be in January. I'm speaking of, back in March or in fall of 2023, speedy trial right. And they can't stomp on his right there. So I feel like this whole thing was orchestrated so that it bought more time. Like they knew when this leak happened with Mitch that they were going to, this is my opinion, that they were going to remove the lawyers. It was going to cause chaos. They knew that they would fight to be put back on, and all this bought them more time. So instead of the trial happening, and thank you, Tom M, for 5 gifted memberships, and welcome members. Appreciate you so much, Tom. So my theory is, in needing more time for trial, they orchestrated this whole thing and it bought them more time. So they knew that the lawyers would be put back on because everybody was in an uproar. Like, this is stomping on his constitutional rights to the counsel that he chooses, and he has every right to have these lawyers. And all of us thought that, even, you can think that he's guilty or innocent. We all kind of were like, okay, he has every right to have these lawyers, whether we like it or not. So what I'm saying is, I think that they're pulling out all the stops, and I think that they'll go down to the dirtiest depths to get what they want. And what I mean by that is Slick Nick removes the lawyers knowing that it'll go to the Supreme Court, which obviously will take time, but they were going to be put back on. So now they're put back on, and the trial isn't this month like it was supposed to be. It's going to be in October, so it's bought them more time. So again, I'm not, Tony, thank you. I'm not saying that this is right, but just sitting back, and like I said, like, I didn't want to discuss this case like weekly because I just needed to figure out, why did Mitch do this? These pictures have been out there. These leaks have been out there. Richard Allen deserves to have the lawyers he wants. What kind of shenanigans are they pulling? And then I start to realize, like, oh my gosh, like, they got put back on. So this whole charade of like, oh, this is not fair, and what is Judge Gold doing? And don't get me wrong, like, I think Judge Gold has like a weird, her and Nick, the way that she spoke to him specifically in that transcripts, like, she calls him by his first name, Nick, but she called Baldwin and Rosie by their professional names, from what I remember when I read those transcripts, and we have it on our channel. I think that there's some she's not unbiased. Like, she definitely seems to have picked a side and supporting Slick Nick. That's my opinion. I think also, the Frank's motion this week that was denied before even a hearing, after she said that she would be. So Judge Gohl said in November that she'd be willing to schedule a hearing for this Frank's motion with his new lawyers. So she removed Baldwin and Rosie because of the leak. She adds other ones on and she says, yes, let's schedule this hearing. And I would love to hear it, not her words exactly, but yeah, she said, with these new lawyers that I've just put on, let's schedule this Frank hearing. So the lawyers, Baldwin and Rosie, get put back on and she denies it. So people are like, what the heck's going on? In fact, let me just read a few comments from what people had said about it. So the evidence found from execution of the search warrant is admissible in court and will be used in the trial. Good news for the prosecution case, not so good for the defense. So somebody says, in writing, Gohl said if the attorneys she appointed wanted to adopt that Frank's motion, she would have a hearing. She is biased and sloppy and a bully. My understanding from people in Indiana is she's always been this way. She allows her emotions to dictate her cases. People are afraid of her because she is intimidating. We didn't know because this is a high-profile case and there's a spotlight on that area right now. She does what she wants and has been allowed to get away with it. She didn't even do the first written completely. She continues to take docs off the docket. Somebody says, I knew she was going to deny it. I have always believed the defense was fighting so hard against the search warrant because some serious evidence was found. Now, those I think are valid points, and interesting that people from Indiana allegedly, this is also hearsay, I realize that, but still, it's more insight in that area in Judge Gohl than I knew prior. So, all right, let me just refer back to my notes, kind of explained what I think about things. Let's change the image a little bit on the screen. Again, this was kind of me looking at older pictures of Richard Allen and then newer ones. I truly believe, in my opinion, that he changed his appearance after the bridge guy image was put out there. I think that he gained a lot of weight. I think he decided, I'm going to grow my goatee out long. He, in no picture before the murders that we have, has that long goatee. He's definitely much thinner in other images before 2017. And I just really feel like he has taken the opportunity to, okay, good night, Lady Sarah. Thank you so much for being here and watching. I know it's late where you are, and I appreciate your support always. I just think that he consciously decided, so this was after the murders on the left. He's got the goatee that he's grown out. He shaved his head. Again, he in other pictures has more hair. Like he kind of buzzed it down, like where it looks almost shaved. Like he has hair here. You can see a little bit on top, but he's decided to kind of cut it much shorter than it was. And, when we look at the sketches, you can see hair. So did he think that those sketches were about him? And so he decides, I'm going to shave my head a little bit more and have a shorter haircut. I'm going to gain some weight and I'm going to grow my goatee out. I really think that that is possibly what happened. So he, for some reason, decides, change his appearance. I think this was interesting too, because this was from 2022 when he was first arrested. And it's talking about the missed tip from the conservation officer. And it basically says investigators may have considered Allen's report unfounded, the source says. So I don't know who the source is, but for whatever reason, it was being spun to the media that they thought that it was unfounded, possibly. Now we've heard anything from they lost it to they had communication and organization issues early on and then found it later down the road. I don't know. So now let me refer back to my notes. Okay. So again, I think that Slick Nick and law enforcement and the judge, they're desperate. They'll do anything dirty that they feel like to gain what they need. Self-serving in this case. That's just how I feel. I'm sorry if it offends people that I'm talking about law enforcement and the prosecution and judicial system that way, but there's just something very odd about this case. And I think that we can think that there's oddities in this process and also think that Richard Allen could be involved. So that's where I'm at. Again, like I said, I've toyed around with the idea that he's being framed. I just don't feel like that anymore. Like I just think that they must have something on him, you know? There must be something solid besides the eyewitnesses. And that's the other thing that I wanted to say too. Going over this PCA and the eyewitnesses. So Dustin, believe they said October, but I'm not sure 100%, but I think that's a rumor. Yeah, he thought he got away with it and bragged to people about getting away with it. Maybe, I mean, that's definitely possible. And somebody maybe turned on him. People have speculated his wife possibly did. Don't know. I mean, when the trial takes place and all that, like they're gonna play interviews, I'm assuming, or really we'll be able to release them because the case will be over and all that. So we can see Kathy Allen's interviews and find out what she was saying early on. So the sketches and the eyewitness statements and the PCAs are stuff that I just can't go over again and again. I know that people have done that, and I appreciate everyone doing it because I'm there listening and I'm taking notes. But I just feel like for a PCA, you just need a reason to think like it could be this person. It's not held to the standard that a trial information and evidence would be. So will these eyewitnesses take the stand in the trial? I don't think so. I think that they've served their purpose. The sketches have served their purpose. And I don't feel like at this point I want to go back over, because I considered it too, like comparing what this witness saw and what this witness saw. And I just feel like at this point I'm ready to just sit back and wait for real evidence from the trial. We are almost there. You know how fast time goes, guys. So before we know it, it's going to be time for this trial to take place. And I'm ready to look at everything from the trial aspect and not like examine eyewitness statements, because let's face it, eyewitness statements are not reliable. The statements made about cars seen, the statements made about outfits that were worn, I just am like, okay, you know, this was enough for a PCA and that's great, but it's nothing that I'm going to say or source and say, but so-and-so said this and it was at this time. Like, I just don't want to go through that anymore. So I hope you guys understand that. I do kind of want to go through Keegan Kline transcripts, and I know that annoys certain people too. But all right, so let me just read my notes a little bit. So when we're talking about the bullet, I think that it's really weird that there's so many different stories and sourcing of information when it comes to this bullet. It's not in the Ron Logan property search warrant, yet they disclosed a lot of information about the crime scene in that search warrant. So I'm puzzled why they didn't include a bullet that was found. It's not discussed accurately or the same way when we're talking about the memorandum and the affidavit, you know, the arrest affidavit. In the arrest affidavit, it says it was found lying between the girls, a few feet away from them. And in the defense memorandum, it says that it was buried. So I'm just like, why is there so many different, you know, stories about the bullet? I know that people claim that there is a legit trail of chain of custody when it comes to the bullet, claiming that there's pictures of them collecting it. I haven't seen these pictures, so I can't say that, yes, this was totally legit. And what I mean is, like, I think that it's possible, and people are not going to like this, but is it possible they planted the bullet to make their case stronger against Richard Allen? Now, that doesn't mean that he's not involved. I'm just wondering, like, are they so desperate that they would do something like that in this case? I think that that's possible. I'm not saying that the bullet was planted. I'm just saying that I've heard people say that there is a chain of custody with it and that, they were photographed collecting it. I haven't seen any of that. So I can't just go by, well, so-and-so said it and he has a source or she has a source. Like, I just can't go by that. I just know that in the research that I've looked at, it's not in the Ron Logan search warrant. It's stated as in between the girls in the PCA, and then the memorandum says that it's buried. So I have no other information, and you guys let me know, like, when it comes to the bullet, is there like a legit anything, Oh my gosh, Shane, exactly. That bullet reminds me of the keys in Stephen Avery's trailer. And you know what it reminds? Oh, I know this is going to get people heated too. So the Lacey Peterson's hair that was found in the pliers, that was found in Scott's boat, there's something that a lot of people don't know about that case, and that is they took Lacey's hairbrush, the detective on this case, took her hairbrush from the home, didn't log it in evidence, and then it was found in his work drawer. So people have questioned, okay, so then did they plant that hair into Scott's boat in those pliers in his toolbox? Again, I'm just saying, like, we've seen stuff like that happen in other cases. Now, that doesn't mean Richard Allen is innocent. It just means that there's people who are so desperate and they don't have integrity that they would do something like that to get a win. So I feel like until I see more information, and thank you, Johnny, for the coffee. Until we get more information on the bullet, until I get more information of why Mitch, leaked these images, I really feel like it's possible these things are perhaps orchestrated or planted. Again, I could be wrong. I could be right on one of them. I could be wrong on the other one. I just am confused why it's so hard to find accurate information about the bullet. And again, people are stating like, oh, this bullet information isn't even valid. Like as far as the markings on the bullets matching Richard Allen's markings on a bullet found at his house. We'll see. Listen, we'll see. I'm not saying that it's not accurate, but I don't know. There's just something weird going on with certain aspects in this case. But I do think like there can be wrongdoings and Richard Allen could still be the right guy. But again, it's not the way to go about things. Yeah, I agree, sweet dude. He said, hey, I'd like to see the ballistics examiners prove the accuracy in a controlled experiment. And you know what's also interesting is this whole science, quote unquote science, behind these like, oh, well, this marking was made by this gun and that's sort of the fingerprint, and that's how you know that this other bullet will also have the same marking from that gun, and it links it to the one he owned. Oddly enough, I think, didn't we discover that Indiana is like one of the only states that have like used this type of technology or science in a conviction or in court, something like that. So it's like, yeah, it might not be planted, but if it wasn't found the day of, it's sketchy, right? It's going to be questioned. It will be questioned on the stand, whoever collected it. Oh, Florida, thank you so much. Again, I send the link in our group chat with the other people, and I don't expect you guys to always join, but if you guys could just hit like, that to me is just as good as showing up, but I appreciate you being here so much. So let me read on about my... Okay, so there's discrepancies and oddities regarding the bullet. Some claims there's proof of it being handled correctly. I've not seen that, and I won't just believe what I'm told. So I do play around with the idea, perhaps, there's something weird going on there, sketchy. Nick's lack of experience and fumbling of the case, I think it's possible they're desperate enough to pull out dirty tactics. I'm not saying that's the truth, but I'm just sharing where my head is at. And I think there's a small possibility. I also think this leak was orchestrated as a means to buy more time for trial. Yeah, that was all. Like, they knew that they were going to be put back on, in my opinion. So it was all just a charade to buy more time. And now they both have more time, the defense and the prosecution. All right. And why? Why did Mitch do this? We have still not figured that out. I'm not so much in, I don't really care who got the pics or who sent them, like, all around. I just care about the fact that this leak has been out pretty much since 2017. And then all of a sudden it became a matter in a way to remove the attorneys. I just think that that's weird. The new charges added is the state pushing through the media, their theory and narrative, which is overshadowing the Supreme Court's decision to reinstate the lawyers. Again, that's my opinion. I believe the media is bought and paid for. They run the stories they're given by the state, in my opinion. And since there's a gag order, that's why he did the motion to amend the charges on the same day that the Supreme Court reinstated the lawyers. Also my opinion. The timeline, in my opinion, is iffy on this case. I feel this case will be kept as a guessing game and we won't know all that happened, in my opinion. I agree. So I'm hearing also that there's information that Richard Allen possibly rode a motorcycle because there was tire tracks. I need to look more into that. And you guys comment down below or any information that you know about that. Please help me figure it out, that puzzle piece. Like I said, I think the timeline is iffy. I've always questioned it. The thing that I need to look more into, in my opinion, is also the Elvis stuff. I just don't think that he's involved, but people ask me, questions about it. And all I say is, like, I just don't think he's involved. And I don't really have, like, much more than that. So I'd like to kind of re-examine that. I'm also hearing rumors about burner phones. And I think that that's a high possibility and probability, considering this crime occurred, in my opinion, from online stalking and catfishing, and people sharing images of, explicit images of underage people through a ring. So I think that phones definitely were involved, in burner phones especially. So this leads me to the search in the Wabash River. So where did all that come from? Keegan Kline, did he tell them something was in that river? I always thought, since they used metal detectors, it was said in the media when they were searching that river that they were looking for the murder weapon. But now I'm realizing that metal detectors can find phones too. And is it possible that they found a device that was Richard Allen's burner phone and it linked them to the account that he was using, Let's see. So I also have heard people questioning why one of the eyewitnesses was interviewed in 2020, years and years later after the crime in 2017. Bree was interviewed by the U.S. Marshals. Why? Why do you guys think? Well, in my opinion, and from what I've been able to gather, and you guys know that I talk about a federal agent that I have a source with. Hello, BG, good to see you. If people, anyway, so the federal agent that I source, I won't say how I know him, but he is a U.S. Marshal. And I asked him, what would make somebody interview an eyewitness in 2020 when the crime took place at 2017? Why get the marshals involved years later? What's the purpose? Why do you think? And he basically said that in a lot of situations, marshals will be called in when investigations hit a roadblock, when the case is cold. So again, I'm not sure if that's what happened here in Delphi, but I think that it's possible that they decided to interview Bree because the trail was running cold, and they spent a lot of time on people that they shouldn't have, like Ron Logan, perhaps. You know, it seemed like FBI had tunnel vision with him and the search warrant information. Perhaps they wasted time or missed that interview and then went back over things and thought, okay, we need to interview this person and we need help. So they reached out to the U.S. Marshals. So I just think that it was interesting to hear from a marshal who said perhaps it was a cold case. So now, when we get to more information about the judge denying this Frank's motion, you know, does this look good for the U.S. justice system? The world is watching this case. And I just wonder, you know, does it appear like we have all our shit together when it comes to this case? Hi, Shay Benet. Thanks for making it. After Florida, yeah. After watching American Nightmare, I'm convinced more than half of law enforcement and FBI is corrupt. And, you know, like I had told you in our messages before, I mean, that's exactly what this U.S. Marshal, I mean, I'm not saying that he said it specifically about law enforcement, but he said it specifically about FBI. And when we look at the Watts case and FBI's involvement there, I mean, they sat back and watched a whole false confession take place and did nothing. You know, Shanann didn't hurt those girls, but that's what the confession was that got him arrested. And they sat back and they watched it. So again, I think that there's good and bad eggs in every entity, but that's what I mean is I'll keep it on the table that perhaps there's things that are taking place that are corrupt in this case. But I also will say, could be possible that Ron Logan is involved, but they're just going about it in the wrong way. Same with Scott Peterson. You know, I've examined that case, and that's how I knew about certain mishandlings. And I realized like he very well could have been involved, but what they did by also taking the handgun out of his truck. Again, this is this Peterson case I'm referring to. They took his handgun out of his truck and took it into custody, but didn't tell Scott that they took it and they didn't log it. So there's things that were like, okay, why didn't you do it the right way? We wouldn't raise our eyebrow about certain things that you guys are doing if you would just do it the right way. So when it comes to these guys in prison tasing Richard Allen, but also wearing Odin patches, it's like, what's going on here? You know, if he's the right guy, then let's get to the truth the right way. I think it's possible that there would be dirty tactics used, possibly. So Frank's motion. Can you guys see? I seen that lawyer, you know, did a reaction to this. I watch his stuff a lot. I've also watched Bob Mata. I know he's very big in the Delphi scene. I didn't get a chance to watch his live stream about this Frank's motion being denied because it was a little bit longer than I could sit for because I'm doing that whole potty training thing this week. And I just literally only had time for this 15-minute video. And I've already skipped 3-something minutes because I don't want to just sit here and play his whole video and give his whole opinion. You guys can check him out. I liked the video and I will pause this for fair use purposes, but he's going to give his legal reaction to Judge Gull denying the Frank's motion. Johnny says, yes, that's what happened, Mrs. ATS News. I don't even know my own name. Police said they brought in other departments. Agree. Yeah, I think that they needed extra help. I think that it's possible that the FBI, Indiana State Police, and the Carroll County Police just weren't on the same page. We know that because the defense memorandum says that certain officers wanted to explore this Odinism link more, and then others didn't. So we do know that there is discrepancies, and that happens a lot, I think. You know, people have a disagreement on what route an investigation should take. Cops should realize they can't get away with anything these days. They must hate online detectives. Oh, I know. I can only imagine what they think when we pull up, their interrogation interviews and we criticize the way that they got like a confession, because sometimes the confessions that they're getting, it's just not the truth. And they have sworn an oath to serve and protect the public. And if you're using dirty tactics just to get a confession so that the state can get a conviction, that's just not serving the public. You know what I mean? So, anyways, let's see what lawyer had to say about this whole Frank's motion being denied. And then we'll regroup. And thank you guys so much for being here. Again, I will ask you to hit that like if you haven't. I know some kind of joined later. Mac J says, hopefully Gull won't be the judge by the time trial comes. She has shown that she can't be impartial. It seems like she's already picked a side. I don't know if that's just the perception that we all kind of have, or if it's the truth, like I don't know. What if she would be a good judge at trial? We don't know, but so far she's kind of left a bad taste in everyone's mouth.
Order issued on 1/22/24, which was yesterday. The court, having had defendant's motion for Frank's hearing, filed September 18th, 2023. This is the huge Odin. Other people did this. It wasn't Richard Allen. He's actually innocent. All of the issues in the warrant, they left certain things out. They misstated certain facts. They left out descriptions that would not have fit Richard Allen. They basically worked around the rules to get the search warrant, and everything found in that search warrant should be suppressed. That was that huge couple of motions and memorandums of law attached and exhibits attached that we read and broke down together. That was absolutely wild. If you want to check out the deep dive of that, it's in our Richard Allen Delphi playlist on our YouTube page. She's had that motion. She's had the memorandum in support of the accused motion for Frank's hearing, the defendant's supplemental motion for Frank's hearing, the defendant's additional Frank's notice, the state's objection to the defendant's motion to suppress, and the state's second objection to the defendant's motion to suppress under advisement. So she's had them all. She didn't have hearing on them like we've seen in so many other cases. I had the motion, I heard the case, and here's my ruling. No. She just had these motions, and now she's issuing her order. What is she doing? Well, she now denies the defendant's motion for Frank's hearing without hearing, just straight up denied. The court finds the affidavit submitted in support of the issuance of the search warrant contained information that a reasonable belief existed that evidence of the murders would be found in the defendant's home and vehicles. The court does not find that the affidavit submitted false statements or that the affidavit omitted statements with reckless disregard, nor does the court find that the affiant intended to mislead the judge by failing to present information. Now, here's what's really interesting about this and wherein lies the problem. I don't have a problem with her ruling. I may disagree with it, but this is a totally appropriate ruling. If she reviewed the facts and the evidence and the testimony, and she came down that, I don't find false statements. I don't find it misleading. I don't find that the affiant was trying to mislead me. But do it with due process. Let them have the hearing. Let them present the evidence on the record. Let them question witnesses. Let them present witnesses. Cross-examine the affiant, maybe. Let them do it the right way. And then if you come down and you deny it, that's fine. That's your job as a judge. But when you do something like this, right after you take a big L, I don't know how that felt. She knows how it feels now. So she takes a big L and almost immediately comes down with this order on a bunch of huge, obviously important, it goes without stating how important these are, motions. Now, why did she do it that way? There's a couple reasons to look at this, a couple ways to look at this. Number one, I would assume they're filing another motion to recuse her or renewing that motion now that they are, in fact, back on the case, according to the Supreme Court of Indiana. Number two, maybe she wants to assert her authority and say, you might have won that, but guess what? You ain't winning anything else. That's what it feels like, right? And if you don't want that appearance of impropriety, if you don't want that appearance of impartiality, like we talk about all the time for judges, how important it is. A lot of people had problems with Judge Newman in the Murdoch case. I disagreed with some of his rulings throughout trial. Did he let a little too much in? Yes, maybe no. Did he give them a million chances? Did he wait till certain questions were asked? Did he warn them? Absolutely. He let due process happen. He made a call as a judge. That's his job. But to do this repeatedly without due process, to remove these lawyers outside the rules, as I understand it in Indiana and most jurisdictions, in chambers behind closed doors, not with the defendant there, taking an oral motion, overruling the defendant, wanting these lawyers to be his lawyers. Obviously, that was wrong since the Indiana Supreme Court already did it in the middle. We don't even know what that opinion is, by the way. Their opinion could also block Judge Gohl, or at least delay certain things, or say we've got to wait till this motion for recusal is heard. There are some issues that opinion could bring up. Maybe that's why Judge Gold is slamming the hammer right away. But this is what railroading looks like. No due process. We don't even care what it looks like. We don't even care what it sounds like. And I'm not even saying it's involving the prosecutors. Maybe the prosecutors are sitting back like, ooh, they're just doing their job, right? Filing objections, arguing against it, obviously, preserving that evidence. But this is not a good look from the bench. And it's even more mind-blowing to me that she is well within her rights to have this hearing, grant this hearing, which, by the way, with the new defense lawyers, now old defense lawyers, the defense lawyers that replaced Rosie and Baldwin, when the new guys came on, she seemed to infer that she was going to allow an evidentiary hearing. And then, boom, you want these lawyers down? Fine, you got them. Careful what you wish for. That's what it seems like to me, to an outsider, okay? I don't know this judge personally, never practiced in front of her.
So he's saying what I've seen other people basically saying, that she's denying the defense's motion because she's wanting to make it known, like, they didn't remove me like you guys wanted. And she's trying to make a statement to the defense. So again, is that the case? This lawyer, he seems to think that that's possible. It could be that way.
But from the outside looking in, from a lawyer's perspective, I would not be happy with this. I would not think this was fair. I would not think this was due process. I would absolutely try to get her recused.
So do you think that they will try to get her recused? People have been toying around with that idea, that she didn't complete due process with this whole leak information. So what else is going to happen from Gull,
And this would be something I would put in as an exhibit. How she was going to let other lawyers handle it, but not us. And again, what's mind-blowing is all she had to do is have this hearing and then come down with this written order and make specific findings. And then let's keep it rolling. Let's keep it moving. But she chose to do it this way. Okay. I don't remember where I was. The court finds the affiant submitted in support of the issuance of the search warrant contained information that a reasonable belief existed that evidence of the murders. Okay, I read that. That they did not mislead the judge or present false information. Okay. As the court has found the affidavit for issuance of the search warrant was valid, the search itself was reasonable and legal under Indiana law and the Fourth Amendment case law. Defendant's motion to suppress fruits of the search of 1967 North Whiteman Drive, Delphi, Indiana, is also denied based upon.
I've also read in some of the groups today that her job as a trial lawyer, or as the trial judge, is to make sure that the trial is commenced in the appropriate time slot and all that, and that her denying it wasn't against anything personal against the defense, and that it's just within her rights to do so. So people have argued that, like, it's not unusual that she denied it. So again, there's difference in opinions. Those comments weren't coming from legal minds, I don't think. It was just people who are into true crime and were given their take, and some of them just didn't think that it was unusual that she denied it. Ultimately, I think it's unusual to say verbally, like, yes, with these new lawyers I've given Richard Allen, let's schedule a hearing. And then once the other lawyers are back on, being like, denied, without even listening to the hearing, Tom, and thank you so much for the super chat. I think the river search was smoke and mirrors for what was really going down, distraction from what was really going down. They knew Richard Allen back in 2019, in my opinion. So what do you think was really going down? That they were already surveilling Richard Allen, so they didn't, whatever. So the theory is that they found a phone in the river and it helped link them to Richard Allen. You don't think that that's what took place? Or do you think that it's possible they had an eye on Richard Allen, and then maybe they got a tip from Keegan Kline about the river, and then whatever was found in the river kind of solidified something against Richard Allen, like an account found on it or something like that? Let me know what your thoughts are. Every objection overruled and sustained will be magnified. They can't have Gull in the defense. It is not a conflict. They can't have Gull in the defense. Is it not a conflict of interest? In my opinion, she needs to recuse herself. She has been proven biased, in my opinion. Did she fire all other prosecutors or cops when they leaked evidence? Right. I mean, this stuff had been going on and we knew that. The smart one is the judge that ran away from the case. Good move, right? And that whole thing was weird too. All of a sudden, they didn't feel like their safety, or they felt their safety was at risk. Wasn't that the reason? And they like walked away from this, and then Gull got it. I mean, it's all weird. This is just unusual things that take place. And these are the reasons why I'm like, every step seems very calculated. I don't know what it means, but this whole Mitch and this leak things going on, like this was calculated and orchestrated, I think. And in this, for what? The lawyers were put back on. So why did we do this whole charade, you know? And it's ultimately it bought them more time. So I just am like, so that's what it was. This was just a legal way to buy more time. And Richard Allen doesn't get a speedy trial, but he gets his lawyers back. So it's all looked at as like, oh, it's a win for the defense. He got his lawyers back. And it's like, yeah, but it was just a charade. Again, that's just my opinion. All right, let me look at my notes while I play this more.
And all the pleadings, memorandums, and exhibits previously submitted in support of the request for a Franks hearing. Now, what's annoying about that is when judges usually make specific findings, it makes it easier to find problems or appellate issues. When they just say, looking at all the pleadings, denied, it's much more difficult to find appellate issues. Defendant's motion in limine regarding ballistics is reviewed and denied without hearing. I mean, give me a break. This is crazy. Like, deny, 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 deny. I'm going to kick you off. Oh, you're back. Well, guess what? Deny everything you did. Thanks, but no thanks. You wasted your time.
Oh, no. Sorry if there was a echo. Was there an echo there? Because I didn't mute. I forgot to mute. But I think you guys were able to kind of hear him still. It's almost like no one wants the case to be solved, in my opinion, right? And people have said things like, oh, they want Richard Allen to deteriorate behind prison or lose hope and die. Like, I'm just like, okay, thank you, Florida. I'm just like, dude, anything could be possible. I'm leaving everything up on the table. So the whole, remember the other day when they had that witness list and people were like, oh, Kathy Allen's on there and so-and-so's on there and all that. I seen somebody today say, oh, what do you know? Keegan Kline wasn't on that witness list. So I guess he's not going to testify or something like that. And again, I was talking to Criminality about this and we kind of had a little chuckle like, okay, that list was only because of the witnesses in regards to the PCA. So that list has nothing to do with the list of people who are going to testify at trial. And if, in my opinion, if Keegan Kline is a confidential informant, that means that they are not witnesses. They do not testify. Witnesses testify. Confidential informants provide information to police in confidence. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that. I think people were getting kind of misinformed on that aspect as well. Like that list that we had seen with the unredacted PCA, that had nothing to do with the list of anybody that was going to be testifying at trial. And will Keegan Kline testify at trial? I don't know. I mean, if he's the criminal informant, I highly doubt it. But again, that's something that we still have to wait for trial. We just don't know for sure. But I do think that as much as I've said Keegan Kline is red herring, I'm feeling more and more like, okay, wait, maybe he did have something valuable. Even if he didn't know Richard Allen, what if he knew like the screen name or the alias that he had used online within this ring of images that they would swap and all that, you know?
The court finds the evidence contained in the defendant's exhibits A and B attached to the motion is relevant and admissible. The court further finds the probative value of such evidence is not substantially outweighed by its prejudicial impact, and that the evidence will not confuse or mislead the jury. Defendant's motion to transfer is taken under advisement pending the state's response, if any, and a hearing to be set. State's motion to amend information will be set for a remote hearing. I believe this most recent motion for transfer was filed by the new lawyers that she likes, and we'll see if that ends up happening. And we'll see if he ends up getting transferred. But basically everything denied without hearing. You lose, you don't pass go, you don't collect $200. And I'm fine if I disagree with judges. I tell you every time there's a lawyer that disagrees with the judge's ruling. Two lawyers fighting about something, that's why a judge has to make a call. One of the lawyers are going to think the judge got it wrong. But we have watched and experienced way too many cases together for you all to be fooled out there in the chat, in the YouTube sphere, in the public true crime world. This looks and smells different. We've seen people lose hearings. We've disagreed with it. We've agreed with it. We've seen guilty verdicts. We've seen not guilty verdicts. We've seen multi-million-dollar civil verdicts. We've seen $0 civil verdicts. This is not how it's done. This is not what the justice system is supposed to look like. It does show you, and it's a learning experience on the power a trial court has, the discretion they have, how it's hard to fight against this stuff, how the judge, frankly, and a lot of people are like, oh, here's an appellate issue. It's like, she probably doesn't care. Because, yeah, it's an appellate issue, but it's like, after he gets convicted, good luck. Years down the road, when this appeal is getting heard, what's Richard Allen's physical and mental state going to look like? This is majorly problematic and not how it should look. And it's not so much her ruling or even her reasoning for the ruling. That's appropriate. That's how she views it. That's within her discretion. But to dismiss them without further argument when she seemed to be open to having the evidentiary hearing and argument with other lawyers seems to be punishing a defendant for the lawyers that he chose, which is absolutely inappropriate for a judge, for a jury. You hear lawyers say, hey, I might sound like a jerk. Don't hold it against my defendant or my client. I'm just doing my job. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think I'm being overly sensitive about this? What do you think the tone of this order is?
He goes on to talk a little bit more, and he talked a little bit more before that. You guys let me know, what you think. Also, do you think that this is unusual that she denied it without, first stating that she'd be happy to schedule a hearing with the new lawyers that she appointed, Richard Allen, and then once the other lawyers are put back on, she denies it. Hello, Unravel. Thank you for being here. We are actually pretty much done. Anything you guys wanted to add before we close out? Again, I'm exhausted. I told you guys this potty training week has me, it's more mentally exhausting than, it's nothing to do with like the laundry and running around and cleaning. Like it's just, she's doing good though, but we're only on day 2. But yeah, let me look at my notes. I think that we pretty much went through all my notes. Again, like I said, I thought that stepping away from the case for a little bit because it just got way too far from the victims and the facts. It's turned into, there was like a whole doxing like fight going on between creators and other arguments going on between creators. And it's like, oh my gosh, people only tune in for this drama. Then we had Murder Sheet doing a false copyright strike against criminality right around Christmas time that they ended up like dropping. It's like, why? What was the point in doing that? You know what I mean? Yeah, this case makes the Watts look squeaky clean. Well, I don't know about that, but it definitely gives me the vibe that like, okay, the bad vibes that we got in the Watts case, like, is that replicating here in a different state? It's unfortunate that we've seen multiple states where cases, where was that case in that documentary, Florida, the one that you mentioned, the American, what's it called? What state did that take place in? Oh my gosh, Shane says, I've had an 11-year-old dog that is still weeing everywhere. When you're finished with your daughter, please take him. I had a dog that was like that too. My ex has him. Like I visit when I can, but yeah, he got the dog in the whole deal, the breakup. And I was happy because he had another dog too, and they're like best friends. But that dog he pees out of spite. Places. He knows exactly what to do. So American Nightmare took place in California. Oh, what do you know? The same state as Scott Peterson. And that's the thing is the Scott Peterson case, like I feel like it's possible that he is guilty, but there were things that took place that was like, dude, that wasn't right. It's just not right. All right. Yeah. FMS. I agree. Again, guys, we'll talk very soon. We're going to do another live stream this week on the Watts case. Hopefully CDT can join me. I am still examining the Gypsy Rose case. I took a little break from that as well. But yeah, exactly. Spite peeing is hell. It really is. And that just shows how smart dogs can be. You know what I mean? It's like a double-edged sword. You want your dogs to be smart, but you don't want them to be that kind of smart. But yeah, we'll talk very soon, guys. Johnny, are you going to go live? Anyways, if you guys want to kind of decompress, join Johnny on his channel and we discuss a lot of stuff over there. I don't know if it'll be tonight, but I appreciate you guys all being here with me. And yeah, we'll keep up on the updates with Delphi. Again, I'm not saying my opinions and feelings on things tonight were 100% the truth, but I just feel like it's possible that, like that lawyer, guy just said, like, we've seen other cases, we've seen how things take place, like, and this one just feels different for whatever reason, and it's not a good different. Oh, thank you, Melmac. I really appreciate your support. All right, guys, I just want to say good night, and we'll talk very soon, and bye, everybody.